We were $800,000 in debt and liens on the house, and I was rising to the moment like a dysfunctional human being. I was drinking myself into the ground. I was blaming everything on my husband. And the very next morning, when the alarm rang, that's what I remembered. And I tried it, and it changed my life. And it led to this belief that you're one decision away from a different life.
In this special episode of My Legacy, we're diving into the raw, unfiltered truth about what it means to fail forward. Hosts Martin Luther King III, Arndrea Waters King, Marc Kielburger, and Craig Kielburger bring together the most powerful stories from past guests. Moments where failure didn't break them, it built them. Comedian and Emmy winner writer Larry Wilmore on getting fired, teaching him what breaks you can remake you. And Sarah Jakes Roberts on how healing isn't a dramatic Hollywood moment, it's small intentional steps. But first, Mel Robbins on how to take that first step when your life is spiraling out of control.
Mel, your career is rooted in reinvention and in resilience. You've also shared that you hit rock bottom, and that was your catalyst for change. Can you tell us about that?
You know, Sawyer was very gracious in talking about the good things. There were a lot of bad things. And we have had a lot of, I would call it like invisible distance in our relationship. You know how when you have somebody that you love very deeply and you just wish that you could be closer, you wish you could have more fun, you wish it just sort of was more of a well-oiled machine and not so like, and I screwed up a lot of stuff. I mean, I had ADHD and dyslexia and was not diagnosed till I was 47. And when that happens to you, what you develop is anxiety. And so I had a chronic struggle with anxiety. As a young mom, when Sawyer was born, I had severe postpartum depression. I could barely even hold her for the first 3 months of her life because of the medication and the severity of what I was dealing with. And it impacted our relationship. And when I was 41 years old, I was sitting here listening to Sawyer talking about the radio show, and I'm so thrilled that she has a wonderful memory of it because that was during a moment in time where my life was falling apart. And when that happens to you as a parent, you do everything that you can to try to shield the reality of what's happening from your children because that's not their burden to carry. And what was happening for us is my husband had gone into the restaurant business, and it was really good until it wasn't. And at the age of 41, with 3 kids under the age of 10. So, you know, I'm going to have to do the math. You were under 10 years old. We were $800,000 in debt and liens on the house. And I was rising to the moment like a dysfunctional human being. I was drinking myself into the ground. I was blaming everything on my husband, right? Because he tried to do this. And the simplest things, like getting out of bed, opening up bills, asking for help. I couldn't make myself do any of it. And I was the worst parent. I mean, there were times where she would come downstairs, and this I know you do remember, and she would find Chris and I asleep in the living room chair because we had passed out from bourbon, because we were trying to just suppress all the fear because it was just so overwhelming. I mean, when you can barely put gas in the tank and food on the table, I mean, that's a acute level of stress. And then you add on to it the sense that you're failing your kids and you're about to lose everything. And so for me, it was paralysis. And what happened is, you know, I have learned from people who are far smarter that research this. There's a saying in addiction treatment and psychiatry that people only get sober when being drunk is harder than facing the things that you're scared to face. And what I've also learned about myself and human beings in general is people only change when they're ready to change. And if somebody in your life is not changing or they're exhibiting challenging behavior, it's typically because they can't right now. There's some skill that's missing. There's hope that's missing. And for me, that was a big one. What was missing for me is this hope that anything that I did would actually matter. Because when your problems feel that big, like what happens is despair sets in. And it's very hard to motivate yourself when you feel like it's not going to matter anyway. And that's how I felt. Because what happened for me is that alarm would go off and I'd feel the wave of anxiety because I'm 800 grand in debt. I'm basically like, feel like my life is about to implode. And so what do? I rot in bed. I stare at the ceiling. I think about all my problems. I then hit the snooze button, which by the way is making procrastination the first decision of your day. I mean, how are you going to win in life if your first decision is, I think I'll just avoid getting out of bed? And what happened is I would literally hit the snooze button 4 or 5 times in the morning. And then these guys would miss a bus. You probably don't remember this, but then I would thank God. And then I would come racing out of the bedroom like a lunatic because they would be waking me up. Bus would be gone. Chris was a very smart man. He didn't want to be there when I woke up. I mean, Martin, right? And so,
no comment.
Smart man. He did good. And so, he didn't want to be there when I got up. And so they would be waking me up. And so now I'm yelling at them because I am disconnected from here because I don't understand what anxiety actually is and what it isn't. And I couldn't reconnect with myself. And that's also part of the neurology and the physiology of it. But you can reconnect to yourself. And so they would then miss a bus. Then that's just sent my whole day just down a complete wrong way. And so what happened is I just got this idea that maybe if I moved fast enough when the alarm rang, that I could move fast enough and beat the anxiety. That maybe if the alarm rang and I launched myself out of bed like a rocket ship, like literally like NASA, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that if I launched myself, maybe I wouldn't be in that bed when the anxiety and the depression and the overwhelm hit. And it worked. And what it taught me, and this has been the thing that has really defined a lot of my career, is that you can build a skill in life where you learn to not let your emotions and fears about things dictate what you do. That you are not defined by how you feel. You are not defined by your emotion in the moment. I mean, if you really think about it, you can't be courageous without fear. You can't display confidence without self-doubt.
One of the things that I say to our daughter all the time is that courage is not the absence of fear. It's when you do it anyway.
Yes.
So it's not feeling, when we're talking about her grandparents or we're talking about taking a test, it's not, Yolanda, not feeling it. That's not courage.
Right.
It's when we feel it and we do it anyway. I'm curious, though, what was that impetus to make you even to come up with the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so it's like, okay, so I was sitting in my living room and the kids had gone to bed and Chris, again, smart man, nowhere to be found. And have you ever had a moment where you're giving yourself a pep talk? I mean, that is a low moment. It's one thing if you're giving me advice, but if you're having to talk to yourself, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, that's it, Mel. Tomorrow morning, it's a new you. Tomorrow morning, you're calling your parents and you're telling them what's happening. Tomorrow morning, you're going to start exercising. Tomorrow morning, you got to look for a job.
How did it go?
Oh, well, I keep ticking off the list. And then I get to, and by God, tomorrow morning, when that alarm rings, woman, you're not going to lay there in bed like a human pot roast marinating in fear. You are going to get up and get those kids on that bus. And at that exact moment, a rocket ship shot across the television screen at the end of a commercial, and it gave me this harebrained idea. That's it. It must be a sign from God. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, I'm just going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship. Now, I had 4 bourbon Manhattans that night, so that's probably, what also opened me up to it. But I actually do believe it was divine intervention. There is no other explanation because the idea is absurd. And the very next morning when the alarm rang, that's what I remembered. And I tried it and it changed my life. And it led to this belief that you're one decision away from a different life. that you still have to do the work, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is going to help you push through the work.
Okay, Mel, we all know 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
The world.
Yes.
We sent in the tech talk, read the book. We all love it. I actually want to turn it to you, Sawyer. Okay, so when those moments happen, that the world now knows that story, was there a moment that you saw your mom in that transformation and you said, I want that strength in my life?
A single moment?
Probably not.
I feel like I don't remember necessarily a single moment that was like, I want that strength. I want to be as smart, as brilliant, as confident as her, and just so loved. But I think it was honestly the little things that added up. I think it was truly like all the small interactions. And I think overhearing her on meetings, and just like all of you have said, like she's just brilliant. And
As are you.
oh, thank you.
And did you notice that transformation? That moment that she described, from the anxiety, the stress, to that change
Maybe
slowly?
last week. I think
It's coming. But candidly, like, and partially, I even love the fact that there wasn't a moment, because let me change my question, because I think we so often envision change being dramatic, the heroine arising, the melodramatic music and the Hollywood moment. And instead, maybe it was, to your point, a series of small things. And that's where the profound change is, because it adds up.
Yeah, I've always like looked up to her more than anyone in the world. And I think it was hard because she was always gone in high school. And so I didn't really know what she was doing. I've seen 1 or 2 times of her speaking. And during those times, I was like, wow, that's my mother up there. And seeing in her element, which was incredible.
Let me
You can-
address 2 things here, because I don't think changing your life is glamorous, and I don't think anybody notices when you do it right. I think it's a grueling process. And Chris and I protected our kids as best we could, because I remember the morning they found us when we had passed out in the chairs, and I'm like, I can't expose them to this. I have a responsibility to at least pull it together for them. And Sawyer is painting the story with a beautiful brush, and it also created a lot of heartbreak for us, because ultimately my husband left the restaurant business and was a full-time stay-at-home dad, and I was off on the road saying yes, 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 yes to everything I could, because I was the breadwinner. And we went through so many things in our marriage because I resented the fact that I was in that position. And I was mad that I was on the road all the time. And I was scared about our finances. And I also feel like our marriage is ours. It's not their business. And so I'm happy to hear that we insulated them from a lot of it. But the truth is, me not being there created a lot of distance. And this is a huge issue inside of relationships between parents and children. The tension between admiring somebody and also the mismatch of what I'm providing versus what she needs. And I did not provide what she needed. I had certain examples that I gave about hard work, but I wasn't there. And when I was there, I wasn't present. Like a lot of parents that are working, or if you're a single parent and you're stressed out all the time, your kids are the only people that are going to remember that you worked. No one else is going to. And I very much regret the amount of time that I stayed on the road, because there came a point in time where I was making enough money and we were being super responsible and shoving a lot of it back into savings. And so we were back in a safe territory financially, that I could have started to have better boundaries with work, and I didn't. And it did create a real distance between us, because I wasn't there. And I didn't do a good job because I was constantly on edge, constantly stressed. And there's this thing I've learned recently that I wish we had all known, because I would always blame my bad behavior or my bad mood on work. And that's not an excuse. And one of the things that I've learned recently that I wish they would always be like, don't use that tone with me, or like, just because it happened at work, don't bring it here. But there's a great way to say this to somebody, which is, I'm really sorry about what your stress at work did to you, but you're going to have to apologize for how your work stress is impacting me. And I was chief offender in that regard of taking my stress out on my family. Why? Because I didn't know. I didn't have the tools yet. I just knew how to push myself. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Larry, you've certainly had many ups and downs in your career.
Yes, for sure.
Often the most important lessons that we learn come from our challenging times.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share what has been your most challenging experience and what has been emerged from that experience?
Yeah, I've had many of them. Many times people think your career is just this line that goes like that, but it really isn't. Some of my biggest ones was I was fired from the Bernie Mac show after I won every award you could possibly win, and I was in a fight with the network the whole time. And it was just one of my lowest points, and I was, my personal life wasn't going too well at the time too. My wife and I were trying to figure out what was going on, and I just felt so isolated and just really, really down. But I just relied on just doing the basics, We spent a lot of time at that point, Lauren doesn't know about a lot of these things, but we just worked on our marriage for a long time, and doing the work of that just really helped, it gets you out of the thinking about bad things, and remembering why I like the business and going forward. Getting fired from the Bernie Mac show actually opened the door to me working on The Office, to me being on The Daily Show, to me expanding the things that I wanted to do all along. But, I was going down that road, and it was very instrumental for me to feel so low emotionally, but to know that I had love around me, I had support. Guys, it was amazing, the outpouring of love, of support, just from showbiz, from luminaries, people like James L. Brooks. I remember Stephen Bochco reached out to me, people I didn't even know, saying, it's okay, Larry, we're with you, hang in there, you're great, the work you're doing is great, let alone from friends. But the most important thing was family. And even when my wife and I split, when we were talking to the kids, we both understood how lucky we were to have a family that had love first, and even though you could be going through difficult times, making difficult decisions, if you start there, you'll be okay in the end, That's always been my lifeboat, is family. Family's always the lifeboat, and all the other stuff is around that.
Now, Larry, I know that it's hard to select just one project that you would be most proud of outside of your beautiful children, but is there one that you felt particularly was significant because of how many obstacles or setbacks that you had to overcome to make it happen?
Yeah, I probably go back to the Bernie Mac show, to quote from Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, So it took me, I'll tell this story real quick. I was in an office where I had like an overall deal at Disney that had expired, but I was still going to the office, just waving at the guard, getting on the line, and just kind of hiding out. Guys, I'm not exaggerating. For 4.5 weeks, I never turned in anything or something. I wrote the same 3 pages every day. I could not get past page 3. This is 4.5 weeks. I'm gonna get found out. They're gonna realize I'm a fraud. I'm scared every day. Now I'm hiding in my office all the time. I just couldn't get it. Some days I didn't write anything, banging my head against the wall. And then one day I looked up and I was on page 4, and I was like, oh, and something had clicked, and it just poured out of me. The entire show in 36 hours. I couldn't stop writing. It was during the counting of the votes down in Florida with, you remember Bush in that election. I was watching that as I'm typing, and that script ended up winning an Emmy, a year and a half later. And almost intact from that moment. And I just had clarity in that moment. It took so hard to get it, but it just took trust. I was so proud of myself for doing that and just sticking in there, because there could have been many moments. I mean, when you're feeling really low, especially as a creative person, and you feel all alone, and everyone's going to judge something you're doing is terrible. I mean, you're going through all the worst things that every writer has. You feel that way anyway. It doesn't matter what the project is. Finally, everybody's going to find out that the piece of crap that I already know that I am, But when I broke through, I was so proud of the fact that I stuck in there, and it became like a template for other writers and that sort of thing, and so I was very proud of that moment.
Larry, you have played so many iconic roles. Now, obviously, among the most iconic is the very sarcastic, hilarious, the senior black correspondent. Yes.
Senior black correspondent.
Senior black correspondent, of course,
Thank you very
from
much.
The Daily Show. Can you bring us some of your favorite memories from those shows?
Oh, man, so many. Just working with all those talented people, I was just so lucky to be there. I mean, I started right after John Oliver had started, right when Rob Riggle and Asif Mambi, we all kind of started at the same time. My audition was funny. It wasn't quite an audition, but I met with John and we had talked about doing something, because that's when I was looking to start kind of performing again. I was in that transition point, and we thought it would be something fun. We weren't quite sure. They thought, well, maybe you're like a black Republican. I was like, no, I don't want to just be anti-something. And then someone said senior black correspondent, and that just sounded really funny. And so what they said is, we'll write two things, and we'll just do them, we'll tape one and we'll do the other one in the show. And so we wrote them. And when you're trying to find it, you're not sure what you are or what that type of thing, you tend to overwrite it. And I remember during rehearsal, the rehearsal went horrible. I mean, as a comedian, especially as a performer, it was just too overwritten and nobody's laughing. And it's that point where the crew isn't kind of looking at you because they think, it's like how you don't name certain farm animals because they might be food one day. So you don't want to get too close to them, so making sure they're not going to get too close to me. This guy, he may not stick around. And you can just feel that you're not connecting. And so I was kind of down. And then I found out, before air that they were going to cut one of the pieces we were playing. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be on this show. And then they decided to do one piece. And right before air, John goes through this rewrite. And he brought me and he said, hey, man, let's just go through this. And he said, let's just talk it through. And I really just put it in my voice. And I'm working off of John and we're doing it like that. And we really got it tight. And right before we went on, I was sitting there and he said, hey, man, and I was a little nervous. He said, just look in the camera and just effing give it to America. That's what he told me. And I was like, okay, And so the first joke, huge laugh. And as now my comedian instincts are taking over, like, okay, I got you guys now. And it's like, bam, bam, bam. And now the crew is likes a brother now, Like, the crew is like, where did this guy come? When did he sneak in the door, And I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget John's generosity, knowing that I needed a little boost at that time and just saying, hey, man, don't worry about this. Just, what you're doing, And it was so nice,
Now I'm going to turn to your husband because you've said in the past that toxic relationships used to be your drug of choice. Mm-hmm. I want to know what helped you finally break that pattern.
I think what really helped me was realizing that the toxic relationship wasn't with the other person, it was with myself. Like, I think that part of the reason why I was so drawn to people who I felt like I could save or make better, or who could add worth or value to me if they were able to be loyal and significantly present in my life, was because I felt so devalued myself. I was so insecure myself. I was so frustrated with who I was that person became a distraction and a trophy that would make me feel better if ever they would just get it together. And so I made the pursuit of them my focus instead of really trying to figure out who I was. And there was really one thought that really changed my life. But it was after we got into a really bad argument and the police were called, so maybe more than an argument. And I had to go to CPS to just tell them, like, hey, the kids are okay. You guys can continue to check in on me, because the police had been involved. And I was walking out of that CPS office and I just said, I can do better than this. I can do better than this. And it wasn't like I thought, I'm going to be a New York Times bestselling author and I'm going to host an event with 40,000 people. I meant I can avoid going to CPS offices. I can avoid getting so angry that the police are called on me. I can do better than this. And I just did what was a little bit better than that. And then I would get on that level And I would think I could probably do a little bit better than this. I moved back home with my parents and I had the kids, and I thought, well, if I could just get my own place, and better and better and better just became my pursuit. Not better for the pursuit of moments like this, but just better because I just felt like anything is better than this. Anything is better than this. And if to not pursue better is to move backwards, and I was moving backwards quickly. And I think that that's what we have to understand in these toxic relationships, whether it's with ourselves or with other people, because you can have a toxic relationship with yourself that makes you just get degree after degree after degree because you think that's going to make you feel better, or a toxic relationship that makes you achieve and pour yourself out. Anyone who's dealing with some type of trauma that is unresolved may have a toxic relationship somewhere, but better is just, I think I can experience better health than where I currently am. And I'm really grateful for who I am now on the inside. Like I've had all of these different things happen to me. I have not changed my bio on Instagram. My bio is the same bio that I ever had. Cause like the books are nice, the things are nice, but like if that ever becomes my bio for me, it just feels like I missed something, because I'm so proud of the girl who like finally figured out who Jesus is, who loves her husband, whose children are her teacher. Like I'm so proud of who she is, that's what I want you to know about me more than all of these things I achieved, because that's what I fought for, and that's what I thought was never possible. The other things they're just cherries on top.
Well, let's talk about something that you wrote on Instagram. Because in your getting better and getting better and getting better, at one point you thought that you did not ever want to get remarried.
Oh yeah.
But then someone changed your mind.
Oh yeah.
And this is what you wrote on Instagram. The vulnerability required to become one after you fought to become whole is not often discussed. I had to surrender my identity as a powerful single mother to discover my power as a married woman.
Yeah, nasty work. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, I got to a space where I was healthy. I'd bought a home for me and my children, and I thought, this is the dream. Like, I thought that getting married and having the white picket fence was the dream. I saw that white picket fence just keep falling off over and over again. And I said, you know what, fine. I love being by myself. I'll travel the world. I'm still young. Everything will be fine. Then I met this man. And in meeting him, I loved the way the world looked through his eyes. It was a compliment to the way the world looked through my eyes, but it also had so much more vibrancy and color. And there was so much more care and depth for people and opportunities. And I thought to myself, I think that he would make me better, as we talk about this better. But I will say that I underestimated the transformation necessary for me to let go of the pride of being like, oh my gosh, I made it. I'm this, single mother who bought this house, and I can make good decisions, and I can take care of my family. I can bring home the bacon and fry it in a pan. And now I have someone who's like, hey, I could grab the pan, or hey, I could bring home the bacon. And I think I did have a sense of pride and identity connected to that. I never wanted to need a man again. I never wanted to feel like my life would fall apart if something happened. And I think in the resistance of oneness, that I could have lost out on the opportunity to experience the beauty of oneness. And so that took a lot of work. He's got some battle scars, God bless him. But my life, Woman Evolve wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him. Because his ability to create space for me to dream and to believe in those dreams and to say they're not crazy, they're possible, gave me the courage to actually pursue them. So he's definitely been a North Star for me for many years now.
I love that you speak to women who are in the middle of it. I like this term, not post-breakthrough, not post-glow up. What do you want people to know about the messy middle of the journey?
I think that people should know that it's all the messy middle. You know what I
Now
mean?
that's the mic drop. Done.
That it's all the messy middle, that there is no there is no once I do this then, that once you get there you realize that there's another mountain, that it keeps going, that there's something else that you have to overcome. So instead of trying to get post anything, I think the question is, how do I find the better in now? And I think that that has been one of the things that has really been instrumental for me, is recognizing that there's beauty in the messy middle. And if I keep moving the goalposts, then I'll never find peace. But if I dare to believe that there's peace somewhere here, then all I have to do is start searching for where it exists now. I just have gone through enough I mean, especially if you think about my life, like as a teen mother, I thought when I get married, then I'll be okay. And then I got married and I'm like, well, if he would do this, then I'll be okay. And if we do that, then I'll be okay. And then I left and I'm like, if I could get the house, then I'll be okay. Then I got the house and I met this incredible man. And it's like, okay, once I moved to LA, then it just kept moving. And so it dawned on me, this is all a part of the journey. It's all the messy middle. But I do believe that our lives can be scripted in cursive. And I say can be because a lot of times we miss out on how things can be woven together. We miss out on how all things can work together because we segment our lives. We try to leave some things behind. I'm going to pretend like that never happened. I'm going to become another person, not realizing that the beauty of our story is the full weight of our story. And so if we can collect all of our pieces and look at the present and say, okay, this is the wisdom I have, the experiences I have, how do I apply it to this moment? I have found that that is the shovel that we use to find the beauty in the messy middle.
Thank you for joining us for the Best of My Legacy. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment.